And I want to start with Kishore and then turn to Orville for some opening remarks. What, from your perspective, are the U.S. and China competing over, and why? What kind of end state do you think that these two countries hope to achieve in terms of their role in the world, but also their relationship with each other? So over to you.
Thank you, Rory. First, let me begin by thanking Hamid and you for welcoming me back to the Asia Society. I do feel like this is almost my second home, because I first came to the Asia Society in 1984, 40 years ago, when I was first appointed Singapore's ambassador to the UN, and I used to come here all the time. So to come back here is like coming back home. And I'm also very happy to be a Perry Worldhouse Fellow, representing UPenn here also at this discussion. So to answer your question, Rory, I think before you can answer the specific question about the direction of US-China relations, it's important to emphasize that we are dealing with it within a very, very different global context. And we have to understand this different global context if we're going to understand the dynamics that are also driving the US-China relationship. And there are at least three fundamental ways in which the world has changed now. Firstly, to put it very bluntly, the 21st century, where most of the US-China competition will take place, will be the Asian century. Now, what do I mean when I say it's going to be the Asian century? It means that the shift of economic power is going to move to Asia. The largest economies will be in Asia. And just to illustrate that point, in the 1960s, not so long ago, out of the top 5 economies, 0 were Asian. 0. Today, 3 out of the top 5 are Asian. And that future growth, as you know, is going to come from Asia. So that's one big shift that is happening. The secondly, on the geopolitical front, clearly we are moving from a unipolar world to at least a bipolar world. And I like to say that it's actually a bipolar world in a multipolar sea, because lots of other new powers are emerging, becoming more assertive. And so the unipolar moment that the United States enjoyed at the end of the Cold War is gone. But many people haven't adjusted to the fact that it is gone, and that you now have to live in a world where you have to contend with peer powers and other significant powers who are not necessarily going to bend to the wishes of the great powers so easily. So it's a much more complex world that we have to deal with. And thirdly, an equally important point, in the cultural dimension too, we are seeing some fundamental shifts that are happening, where we've had a world, in a sense, that has been dominated by one civilization, Western civilization, for the past 200 years, and Western states, as you know, colonized the whole. 100 years ago, if you were sitting here in 1924, the West ran the whole world effortlessly, right? Now you have a multi-civilizational world, where civilizations that have been dormant are re-emerging and coming back in strength. So even on the cultural front, it's a different world. So within this larger global context, we are also seeing the US-China contest. So why is it happening? The reason, quite simply, is that the United States is doing what exactly any number one power would do when it sees the emergence of a competitor. It makes sure that the competitor doesn't overtake it, so it is pushing it down. That's what all great powers have done. So what the US is doing is not surprising. It's predictable. And if you put X or Y, that's exactly what would happen, because the US has been used to being number one. It doesn't want to see displaced to another power. But at the same time, while this is predictable and expected, what is not clear to the rest of the world that is obviously watching this contest and is very worried about this contest, what exactly are the main strategic goals of the United States in this contest? You know, and this, frankly, as I say in my book, Has China Won? That insight I got from Henry Kissinger in a one-on-one conversation when I was writing my book, Has China Won? And Hamid, to some extent, you alluded to it in your remarks too. So, for example, is it the goal of the United States to stop the economic growth of China. Maybe that's why you have trade tariffs, chips, sanctions, and so on and so forth. Is that the goal? Can't be done. Or is it the goal to overthrow the Chinese Communist Party? Again, I'll explain later, it can't be done. Or is it the goal to do what United States did with the Soviet Union, contain it effectively, leave it confined to a small universe, and have it disengaged from the rest of the world? Again, as I'll explain later, it can't be done. So then at the end of the day, what the world is asking is, what exactly does the United States want to accomplish in this contest, and what will be the end game?